report on council actions and then move on to your staff communications.
September, and we had a bunch of final plats, and then we had several public hearings scheduled, but most of them got continued. So I will go through that quickly. Salazar Point subdivision was approved for a final plat. Terrace Falls subdivision was approved. Sugar Creek Townhomes subdivision was approved. Sweetwater Glen number 3 subdivision was approved, and Franklin Village North number 3 subdivision was also approved. So quite a few final plats. And then the Parker Estates subdivision was continued, and that's continued to October 3rd. So I'll have Randy or I will have a report back to you for the next time. The next one was the Madison Ranch Estate subdivision. That was the one up by Chinden, or 2026. That one was also continued. The applicant requested that, and they just wanted more time to address the concerns that were brought up at this body. So their concerns about the drainage for the other subdivision, they're working on that right now. So
Awesome.
the next one was a pre-annexation, and this was the one off of the Victory Springs subdivision off of Victory, and that one was approved. That was our first pre-annexation process, and they were really pleased with having a pre-annexation process in place so they can review those in detail. So that one was approved. And then the last one was a variance requiring parking of vehicles to be set back 20 feet from the right-of-way, and that one was requested for a continuance as well by the applicant, and that will be heard on October 3rd. So again, I'll have response back on that one at the next time we meet. Did you want me to proceed to staff communications?
Yep, you're next. Okay. Yeah.
So first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending that workshop. We had really good comments back and just a good discussion about how we plan in the city of Nampa. And I think, I mean, I've said this before, I kind of gush on you guys and what we're doing right now, but I just feel like we're getting to the point where we're really looking ahead and making some really good decisions about our future. So again, I just wanted to thank you for your participation in that and really look forward to having those master plans come about and be utilized as we bring projects forward. We will review those projects for their compliance, not only with our comprehensive plan, but also the specific area plans and the mid-level plans that we're doing. So thank you for that. And then I just wanted to report, there's not really a call for you to attend this, but October 20th is another one of those Thursday morning meetings for City Council. And you're welcome to attend. What we're going to cover is the development process and talk about public hearing protocol. And we're going to have our attorney be there. I feel like in these meetings, we do a really good job of sticking to the code and how we need to conduct these public hearings. But this is just a reminder for that process. And so you haven't been asked to attend, but we are also going to go over the development process for all our projects and just kind of highlight all the steps that we go through for review of projects. So
Sounds like it'd be worthwhile to come then.
you're welcome to come. The mayor hasn't requested you attend, but you're definitely welcome to come.
Karen, will you send out an email on that? October 20th?
It's the 20th. Yeah. And that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have our consent agenda.
Make a motion, Madam Chair, that we approve the consent agenda.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda has been approved. Okay, we're at 6:01, so we can go ahead and start with public hearing. One bit of housekeeping, we're going to move action item number 2, the city code changes, to the end, because we have nobody signed up to testify on that, and we'll just kind of get that put at the end of the thing. Okay, action item number 1, conditional use permit for a home occupation of an automobile or truck repair business. Do we have an applicant here? Come on up.
Flipping a coin.
Yeah, who has to come up and talk? Give us your name and address for the record and tell us what you want to do.
Anna Rogers, address is 2512 South Power Line Road, Nampa, Idaho. What we'd like to do is have a European motorsports repair vehicle shop for exotics. We are not doing anything different to our property. We already had an existing building for the shop. It's going to be temporary, probably 2 to 3 years before my son, who is starting the business, would like to get, a storefront somewhere in the community. So it's a very temporary issue, and nothing in the neighborhood will change. There will be no additional buildings constructed. Everything that's already there will stay there.
What about cars?
We have identified parking along the side of the house and then in front of the pasture for overflow parking and tow drop-off.
About how many cars can you guys?
Probably fit like 50. Not saying we will,
No.
but we could.
What were you thinking you would have?
Like 8 to 10 max at one time.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And have you been running this business prior to now, or is it something you just
Not
started?
officially, no, but
What do you mean by not officially?
little jobs here and there, out of the shop, just family, stuff like that, but
Thank you.
Yeah, we wanted to be
Official.
official and do things the right way so that there's no issues going, moving down the road.
Awesome. Okay, well, we might have questions for you after we hear from staff, but we'll see.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Okay, Rodney.
Okay, Madam Chair and Commissioners, Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning Director. The request before you is a conditional use permit for home occupation of an automobile or truck repair business in an RA, so that's a residential zone, at 2512 South Power Line Road. And the applicants have spoken, so I'll skip over that. Not transitioning, there we go. This is in the low-density designation on our comprehensive plan, and you can see that there. It's right next to Skyview High School, and it's south of Greenhurst Road. The property is zoned RA. That's a little closer view on the comp plan. There's the RA zoning on the property. To the south, you can see the RS6 zoning, and to the north and east are the RA zoning, and then, of course, Skyview to the west. History on the property is that Dale Thompson Estates subdivision was platted in 1971, and this is part of that. So older property, it's been there for a long time, and there's public utilities available right in the road in front of it for water, and irrigation is over in the Skyview High School and to the south. But sewer is a good distance away. Here's a little closer view of that aerial and what the property looks like. So again, I'm going to show you some pictures in the next couple of minutes, and this will be, I wish I had shown the road. I can't remember the name of the road, but that's on the slide. So to the south is a little drive here that goes into the subdivision. Oh, there it is, South Florence Street. So just keep that in mind. South Power Line to the west, South Florence Street to the south. So this is an aerial view looking from South Power Line and looking east. There's Florence Avenue right there on the right side there. Can you admit them? Oh. Then this one is looking kind of southeast on Power Line. You can see their home is here, and then I think the shop is back here. And then kind of that open area where some parking vehicles has been noted is there to the south. And there it is again. So this is looking north, same road, right on the corner of Powerline and Florence. And then this is Florence looking back towards the high school and towards South Powerline. That's that back corner there, the southeast corner of the property. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of land, and in the past, at least, I don't know who the property owner at the time was, but you can see there's been storage of tires and vehicles and a tow truck. So I'm not sure how long that's been operating there or if it's continuing today. It sounds like they're not doing that large of a business here. And as the applicant indicated, they were just doing it for family.
So these are Google photos?
These are Google
not
photos.
recent pictures?
Correct.
Okay.
So applicable regulations, I kind of did a high-level view. You've got in your staff report all of the specific regulations. I did a high-level review, and then I'm going to go through on my staff analysis, through the specific conditions of a home occupation. But at a high-level view, home occupations are for small-scale business ventures, and they list in the code, this is listed, some examples of those small scales: home offices, crafts making, at-home daycares, small-scale vehicle repair, etc. And the next point there, businesses must be compatible with the residential neighborhoods and not appear as a business. That's throughout the code. There's multiple references to this in lots of different ways. So we need to think about it. Does it look like a business? Next is businesses must be conducted inside a structure on the property where the owner-operator lives or in the side or rear yard screened from view of neighbors. Then the next one is it requires a CUP for repair garages, including truck, auto, motorcycle, boat, etc. That's a requirement that they get a CUP. Otherwise, a home occupation could just be approved by staff. But in certain situations like this, where there's auto repair, it requires a CUP as well. And then 10110B outlines all the conditions of home occupation, and when they get their home occupation, they agree that they will comply with all of those. If it's found that they don't comply with all of those conditions, then the CUP is revoked, and they have to come back in and apply for a new CUP. Here's your typical conditions for a conditional use permit. They have to meet each of these criteria. And again, mostly it's focused on compatibility. Does it meet a need in the community? Does it fit within the neighborhood? And those are pretty subjective conditions that are determined by this body. Correspondence, we've had just a few items of correspondence. Nampa Engineering Division was pretty standard comments, or their comments were applicable to connections for utilities. In this case, they're not requesting connection, they're just wanting the home occupation. So building department just requested compliance with Title IV. And here's where we get into a little more of the concerns that have been expressed. Nampa code compliance has indicated that there are quite a few vehicles parked in the front of the residence. And I assume that that's in that side yard that's not fenced in from view. I think, yeah, there we go. We'll go back right there. I believe that's the indication there is about 12 vehicles that are stored there. So some of those could be personal use, but if they are not personal use, our code does not allow that for a home occupation to just be right out in the open to be seen. In addition, that area is not paved or gravelled, and so it's just compacted dirt, and that is also not allowed by city code. So If that were the case, that they're utilizing that land for storage of vehicles, we would, they would need to be personal use, and the property would need to be paved. The last comment there is just from a citizen in the area, 2421 South Florence Street. That's by James Bertlow and Carol Bertlow. And they oppose the conditional use permit being granted because the appearance of the property is not consistent with the residential feel of the neighborhood. And they indicated that they counted 17 vehicles recently parked outside of the fence. So a quick staff analysis. I couldn't find a lot in the comprehensive plan regarding home occupations except just the definition. An occupation carried on in a dwelling unit by the resident thereof, provided that the use is limited in extent and incidental and secondary to the use of the dwelling unit for residential purposes and does not change the character thereof. So again, shouldn't be obvious that this is being used for anything but residential. Nampa City Code. This is the section I was telling you about that I analyzed each part of it. Signs, I couldn't find any signs on the property just based on the pictures that I received and from the aerials. Home occupation area cannot exceed 25% of the home. As indicated, an aerial view of the property seems to indicate large portions of the property being used for storage of vehicles. These vehicles may be associated with the business or may be the property owner's personal property. This property appears to be operating as a business and is therefore in violation of the land uses approved for the residential zone. If a home occupation is granted, they may be in violation of the amount of area of the property used for home occupation business. Again, is it residential in nature? If it exceeds that 25%, it moves away from being a residential purpose. No outdoor display of goods, equipment, or materials. As previously stated, the outdoor storage of vehicles on the property may be related to the business, and if so, would not be allowed by code. There is some questions about, if it's behind a 6-foot fence and screened from view, does that matter in this case, since they are coming in for a conditional use permit and they're giving us the information? We need to ask them whether that outside area is being used for storage of vehicles. It's a little different than if a code compliance officer were to go over there and look at it, because they are requesting this CUP and we look at it at all those aspects. It's not just code compliance saying, are you in compliance or not? The next one, only one commercial vehicle is allowed. I saw the truck, but I mean, I think the applicant will need to respond to that and will be able to better address that than I. No employees. The applicant has not indicated whether the business does or will have employees, so that is another question for them. But it sounded like it's just a small-scale family business. Traffic. I'm just going to summarize this quickly. This is just intended to be no different than if you were at a residential neighborhood. The traffic needs to be similar to as if maybe you're getting some deliveries at your home, Amazon or whatever is coming to deliver, your typical residential feel for traffic. And I would be concerned if there was a lot of vehicles being dropped off on a regular basis. That would seem to indicate that it's more than just residential. Property building shall retain residential appearance. It appears that that's the case. Noise, vibration, glare, fumes, odors, nuisances, essentially. I haven't heard of any of those. Except just that it's the appearance doesn't fit the residential neighborhood. And then infrequent sales. And I think this is regarding garage sales, estates, so I don't think that's applicable. And then moving on to land uses, besides the high school, it is a residential area. The home occupation code was added to the city code to allow smaller businesses, so these home occupations should operate with limitations that prevent residential areas from being commercialized. This is pulling from code. If businesses can operate from the home while also preserving the residential nature of the neighborhood, it could be in the interest of the public. And then finally, transportation, the property has access from South Power Line and from South Florence Street. Here are recommended conditions of approval if you choose to approve it. And then here are a couple of motions for your consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word the questions I have. I'm read through this thing and I highlighted page after page of what I see as violations already in existence. I don't see how I can justify, I don't know, that just, if it was one violation, maybe I could look at it and wink and nod my head, but, I mean, there's 4 or 5 violations of city code right now.
Were they aware?
Sorry?
Were they aware? Previous, I mean, it's one of those things
I
where,
asked them how long they've been doing this, and they said they're just starting this up, but this looks like it's been going on for a long time. Not
yeah,
yet.
you will.
At the end of public testimony, we'll let you come up.
Yeah, so it could be something that they just found, that they found out through a neighbor or friend or somebody that they were supposed to have a CUP, and so now they're in. So, but
Then they lied, because if they've been operating before.
It could have been a different operator.
Anyway, I don't know, there's just a multitude of violations already in existence. Whether they know about them or not is not the point. All right, we'll wait and see what they have to say.
Okay. Do we have a sign-up sheet? I think Parker's getting it. He happened to walk in just at the right moment, Daniel, you're saved. Thank you. Okay. Well, the Rogers, you're all on here. You're the only ones on here. So anybody present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? Okay, why don't you guys come back up and you guys can address the questions.
So as Steve was saying, all the cars that are in that side field are all my personal cars. There's 16 or 17 cars out there that are all mine. We've been back and forth with code compliance, getting everything legal, VIN checks, everything, so it's okay. We put the fence up, so they say they don't look over fences, they don't look under tarps, so those are all my personal cars. The few that are out front, I think we have 7 or 8 personal cars out front of the gate, and then anything other than that is gonna be strictly customers.
So that fenced in where that white little fence is and you got the
Yeah.
dirt,
And
that's
I
where,
think there's 3 or 4 personal cars in that lot, the rest is.
so that has to be paved?
Yes.
And I just got a quote today for pavement on that section, and then from the left side of the driveway, all the way back to the shop. We are working on getting that asphalted.
And the tow truck,
That's gone.
it's gone.
That was a friend's tow truck.
Yeah,
What about employees?
That's just me.
none. Well, other than you.
So you're aware of all the code compliance?
Yeah, we've been back and
issues?
forth with code compliance before, I forget his name, before the girl took
Greg.
over. Greg. And we had everything in check. They had the police out doing VIN checks on all the cars, just making sure everything was legal. He wanted a fence put up. We built a 6-foot fence all the way around the field, because they don't, they didn't want to see them, wanted them out of sight. So we've been back and forth the past 6 years with code compliance, getting everything legal, so.
We do have a gate that separates the front on the north side to the back of the shop. And that's a chain link fence with slats in it, so it's a privacy fence. And we're also in the process of putting another fence along the property of the neighbor next to us. So it'll be completely enclosed and not visible from the street.
I've been collecting cars since I was 16, so I have a weird obsession with them that I can't sell them. I
So
just
we
keep getting
keep some.
more. But it's been like, since we submitted for the CUP, that's when I've been more or less a business in terms, I'm legal in terms of an LLC and stuff, but I don't have my CUP, so I can't go crazy with it yet, you know?
Right.
Anybody else have any questions for him? That's all I had written down.
So are you gonna do all the work on the vehicles inside?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, it'll be in that shop. There's
Yeah.
a vehicle lift and everything all set up in there, so.
How big
Okay.
is that shop? 25 by?
60 by 30?
And it's fully enclosed.
Yep.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So in the what Rodney was presenting to us, it talks about occasional traffic to drop off or pick up. How occasional? I'm asking the applicant, and I apologize that I'm not there personally, but how often do you get cars that are pulled in? How often do you get business? How many cars are coming and going? What does
We won't
occasional
know.
mean?
We won't know until we've got the business up and running, but for
No
his,
more than 2 a day.
Yeah.
If that.
Up until now, have you had? I mean, you've been doing this for a little bit, just kind of here and there.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not large scale. It's very small. I'll see maybe like 7 to 10 cars a week is what I'm hoping for, and that's like really good for me. So it's very small scale, and it's the only option I can see because I can't. I'm sure you're aware of the market. Finding a shop to be able to function as a
storefronts
business,
are crazy
a storefront,
expensive.
it's insane. It's not feasible. So
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, according to the section 10-110, home occupancy, the intent of the home occupancy ordinance is to allow for home-based businesses that are or will expectedly be compatible with the residential neighborhood. I don't see any other car repair businesses in the neighborhood in which they are located in order to provide supplemental retirement income, juvenile self-employment, et cetera. How do you square with that?
I don't know if it would fit in, but there's multiple other businesses in the neighborhood. So there's a small engine repair in the back. There's a bridal place to the left. There's a nail salon to the right. So I mean, it's a truck business isn't exactly going to fit in, but it's not big enough that you're going to notice it. And it's damn sure not going to be any different than it has been for the last like 6 years of just cars being there. You know, me collecting cars, working on cars on my own, of that nature. So it's not going to be any more noticeable than it already is. And if it is, you'll see a few more cars out front, customer cars, stuff like that. So
Are you going to be able to keep the cars that are coming in while you're waiting to work on them behind the fence? There's not
Yes.
gonna be anything-
I've got a bunch of parking set up behind, everything's behind the fence. And once the asphalt's there, it'll be even better, so.
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you for your time.
I'd entertain a motion to close public.
So moved.
Okay, so moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Well, it sounds like now that he's been made aware of what he needs to do, he's working on and getting it there. Nice thing about it, it's right on power line, so you don't have those cars going through a bunch of residential streets. They can come and go right off a power line and be gone there. So I commend the guy for trying to get a business started, and yeah, it takes some bucks to get a shop and be out someplace right now, so I totally understand. So I think as long as you're aware that if they get complaints, the CUP gets pulled. And so I think you guys are working in the right direction, so I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, location, like you said, it's not right smack dab in the middle of a subdivision. You got the school across the street that is, essentially like a commercial, because there's not people there all the time, and you're not going to be disturbing people by operating a business like this across the street, because you got the football field as a cushion anyway. So I think the location's okay. I appreciate the fact that they've been doing everything they can for the past while, working with code compliance, trying to get everything figured out. And I know sometimes that's frustrating. It can take time and it takes money too. So I can appreciate that. So I like it.
Agree.
Got to start somewhere, and hopefully it'll get to a point where he can go rent a shop.
Or build one.
And there's no additional structures being built, so it's all existing out there, so.
I agree.
Yeah, if this was on a smaller lot, I would have more concerns. And if it was more set into the neighborhood, I would have even more concerns. But the fact that it's right on power line and that it is on 1 acre, I think it's certainly doable.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for home occupation of an automobile or truck repair business in an RA suburban residential zoning district at 2512 South Power Line Road for Andrew C. Rogers, representing Anna Maria and Richard Thomas Rogers Living Trust, for those reasons that have been discussed by the commission today.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the CUP. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I got to read my deal here. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. Okay. All right. Okay, and we're skipping number 2. And so we're going to public hearing item number 3, annexation and zoning to RS6 and RD for 7 Maples Ranch subdivision. Do we have the applicant here? Yes, we do.
Doesn't say Kent Brown in our staff report.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
For the record, Kent Brown, 3161 East Springwood, Meridian, Idaho. To begin with, this site is located on the northeast corner of Oklahoma and South Side, across the street from Reagan Elementary School. We're seeking annexation and plat approval of this site. Parker, you move ahead. We've tried to design this subdivision to make it very walking friendly. We have the requirement to put a 10-foot sidewalk in our landscape buffer along South Side that will create a bicycle pedestrian pathway there. We're also building one along the Elijah Drain, which is on our very easterly boundary. This pathway is located outside the easement, connects up in our northeast corner with a pathway that was done in Moss subdivision, Moss Creek or Moss subdivision to the north of us. And then that provides a short connection that gets us over to Osborne Park that is over to the east of here. We have 0.79 miles of interconnecting pathways throughout the development. If you go back just for a second, Parker. As you can see, those pathways allow you to move throughout the development, both east, west, and north, south, besides these other 2 major pathways that help other residents pass through our development. In those open spaces that are provided, we have 18% open space. In those open spaces, we have a top play area, we have pickleball, we have a picnic shelter. So we've, I think, provided those things that we've seen in the past. A lot of the development that maybe took place around us earlier didn't have that kind of open space. As the staff report speaks to, and when Jane wrote the narrative for the submittal of it, at the neighborhood meeting, We listened to what the neighbors said. They were concerned about a multifamily element being on the corner. So we have townhouses located in that location. Those townhouses are in between, I can't read that from here, but it's 1350 to 1550 in size. They're 2-story. Later on, I'll have some pictures of those. There's an existing homestead that's in the middle of that site. The original owners are going to maintain that, and that's where the name of the subdivision came, is that's what the name of their ranch was. It's also the name of their brand that they had. That was a cattle operation. It's become difficult for them to continue to operate there in that location. The plats, all say that you're supposed to be able to continue to do agriculture, but either neighbors complaining about the weeds or trying to go out and cuddle a baby calf that just was born, not knowing that mother's gonna rip them a new one if they don't stay away from her baby. So they've found that it's difficult, and that's why they're choosing to do this. All of this is single family. If you look in the center section up there in the top, those lots are a little bit smaller, but again, the square footage that is provided, you're gonna have to read that one for me too, Parker. It's like 1,400 to 2,200. Has the open space that's in the center. And then the remainder of the site has just a kind of a heritage housing type, 7,000 square foot lots or bigger, or 70-foot wide lots on the exterior boundary, and then down to 50-foot wide lots that you'd see in kind of a traditional neighborhood. Our experience from doing development, having those different lot sizes and home styles allows someone to stay in a neighborhood longer. You have the ability to come in with an entry level and stay in a neighborhood where your kids have gone to school. You maybe get more kids, you want to move to a different house. A lot of the 70-foot wide lots would all have 3-car garages, where there would be maybe a 2-car garage and everything else, including the townhomes. So this provides a more livable neighborhood, allowing people to stay in there. In turn, downsizing, for some of us would know about that as we get older. The townhouses provide a pretty carefree, but still a nice living environment to live there. Let's move to the next one, Parker. So this is a picture of one of the housing types. This is a fourplex. This is the street side that you're looking at there. Next one. This is a triplex. We just have a couple of different styles on the townhouses. Again, Parker. These are the smaller cottage lots that were in that upper area that I spoke about. Still a very nice house. You're going to see a lot more 2 stories to get that square footage that we're quoting. Continue. And another 2-story and smaller lot. Here's the larger one that I mentioned with the 3-car garage. You're going to see more of those on those 60 and 70-foot wide lots. Traditional house. And you can just keep kind of going. I think there's one more cottage smaller house on that would be in that upper area. I think that's the last one. We view this as the staff report does, as an infill. City services are available and being provided to the area. It helps kind of be more efficient as a city, not having those enclaves in there. It's close to schools, and we think it provides for a need that is in this area. I'd stand for any questions that you might have.
And I don't have a question, but I'd like to tell you that I appreciate the way you put the larger lots on the perimeter of the project and the smaller lots in the interior. And I think that the townhouses, that's a good location on the corner, so the people that will live there don't have to drive through the rest of the neighborhood, create more traffic problems. I think it's ideal the way you have it set up.
I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know if I interrupted somebody. You had mentioned that after the neighborhood meeting, you changed the fourplexes to townhouses. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then when you were just going through these pictures, you kept referring to the townhouses as fourplexes. So my question is, and this is more just to educate whoever might be in the room or who might be listening, what's the difference between a fourplex and a townhouse?
So when you have a fourplex, that can fit either on as one lot with a whole bunch of fourplexes on there, or it can be, it could be a townhouse style, but it is sitting on one piece of property, and it's a rental. Where a townhouse owns the property that's underneath it. So you have some lots in there that are 32 foot wide and have a 0 lot line, and they're clustered together. And we only have triplexes and fourplexes that are located in that townhouse area. And when someone purchases that, they have a kind of a shared mutual agreement with the other 2 or 3 owners about taking care of the roof and the exterior of the building, but everything else is theirs, including the land that's underneath it. That's what makes it kind of unique. It is a great way to get into a market with something that's a little smaller, but at the same time, as you could see with what we're proposing, similar square footages. So.
And I think the concern, if I'm reading into this correctly, was not necessarily the style, whether it was a fourplex or a townhome, but it was the density. It was the number of people living in that particular building. So you would have 2 families living in a building with 2 townhomes, or 4 families living in a fourplex. I mean, it's more of the density, I think, is the concern of the number of people living in that particular building, not necessarily the lot lines or who owns the property underneath it or whatever that might be.
Jeff, we had a little bit bigger area, and we had a higher density. I can't quote numbers for you, but there was
With the fourplexes?
where the fourplexes were, we had a higher density than what this plan has.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Our overall density here is 4.16 or something like that, isn't it, Parker? So.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
We may have questions after.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested from you is the recommendation of approval or denial, the annexation and zoning to RS6 and RD zoning districts, and the subdivision preliminary plat. The concept is 53 attached townhouse dwelling units, and the applicant covered the difference between townhouses and fourplex, duplex. there is one existing family, single-family detached home, and then 125 detached single-family homes. The surrounding area to the north is Mossy Creek subdivision, zoned RS7. To the south is the elementary school, and then Clear Springs subdivision, zoned RS7. To the east is also Clear Springs, zoned RS6, and to the west is Madison Place subdivision and a county subdivision. The transportation, there's, let's see, some of these notes don't seem right. We'll get into that transportation notes further in here. The water and sewer systems have adequate capacity to serve the property. The staff findings in this case in regards to the conclusions of law, the staff finds that the property will be contiguous on all sides. The proposed RD and RS6 zoning districts are consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use map designation, which is medium density in the area. The last conclusion there gives the commission and council significant liberty to determine whether this is the right time and location for this development. As far as zoning, again, the RS6 and RD are consistent. The proposed use for single-family units matches the surrounding uses. The proposed zoning is compatible with the adjacent zones. The RD and RS6 zones would not create a spot zone because it's consistent with the comp plan. And the staff finds that the proposed annexation and residential development matches the existing land use in the area. Based on these findings, staff can reasonably recommend the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval to the City Council. Those conclusions of law. I threw in some further applicable regulations as far as setbacks. Just for your information, the minimum setback to the garage is 20 feet, 15 feet to the living portion from the front property line. And then interior setbacks, the rear and sides are 5 feet. The building height regulations are 2.5 stories or 30 feet in height. That's measured from grade to the ceiling of the top floor of the structure. Correspondence, the typical building correspondence here. Parks Department requesting a 20-foot easement along the Elijah Drain. As the applicant had brought up, that's for the pathway, as well as the 10-foot wide pathway along Southside Boulevard. And those are part of the conditions, recommended conditions. Code compliance, requesting the developer destroy the weeds throughout the property. They'll need to work with code compliance on that timeline. Police recommending commitment to fund 0.79 officers, 0.26 additional staff. And then the fire department comments. This is 1.9 miles from fire station number 2, approximate response time of 6 minutes. Increased personnel of 0.53 firefighter positions. Engineering comments, the right-of-way dedication for this will be 40 feet from section line on south side. Frontage improvements will be required along south side and Oklahoma Avenue. The traffic study, the project identified mitigation measures that the intersections on south side and Hornbeam, which is part of the subdivision, and then south side and Locust Lane, which is further down. If there's further questions about traffic, we can refer to Daniel to answer those. I'm sure he would gladly do that. The staff analysis, the area is consisting largely of detached homes. The elementary school is to the south. As the applicant said, the parcel is enclaved and would be classified as infill. The proposed development has a gross density of 4.16 dwelling units per acre. As the comprehensive plan outlines, it's in the interest of the public to provide a variety of housing types and housing opportunities. Regarding the plat, the overall area is 43.05 acres. Some of that will be dedicated as right-of-way. The total buildable lot count is 179 with 19 open space lots. I've broken this down into the zoning area as well. 33.99 acres is RS6 and 9.5 acres is RD zone. The total net density for both zones is, for the entire development, is 7.12 dwelling units an acre. The required open space, qualified open space is 15%, and they've proposed 18%. Looking at the RS6 zoned portion, which is all the single-family detached units, the maximum net density would be 7.26, and the RS6 portion would be proposed as 6.21. So it's within the range. The minimum allowed lot size is 4,800, and the proposed is 4,809. So they meet that standard. The lot width is 30 feet, and all the proposed lots are above that minimum. Looking at the RD, the townhouses, the maximum net density in the RD zone is 12.44. The proposed net density is 10.72. A minimum allowed is 2,500. The proposed is 2,567. So they meet the minimum lot size as well as the minimum lot width. So here's the plat overlaid over the existing lots. We can refer back to that if there's questions. The conditions of approval are in the staff report, as well as any that you wish to add. And a motion is there for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker?
Parker, I have a question.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry. And I just want to preface this with full disclosure that I do live in a neighborhood that is adjacent to this property. So I'm just going to ask some questions for clarification. First of all, seems like a question I ask quite often is, I didn't see any response for the Nampa School District, since obviously this is going to affect Ronald Reagan Elementary and certainly East Valley. Did I miss that, or did they not respond? Or
Madam
did we reach out
Chair
to them?
and Commissioner, I didn't get any comments from the school district on this one. Generally, Nampa School District, it doesn't have issues with school population, school being overwhelmed with students. So there isn't really any concern for that as far as we know of.
Okay. Well, I think there is a concern with the applicant stated that these are going to be entry-level homes, and I'm assuming that these are going to be younger families coming in with students. So I guess I'm just a little surprised that they didn't respond to that. Next question is Oklahoma Avenue. That's going to be widened to, is there going to be a center turn lane in that, or is it just going to be widened to two lanes with the center stripe?
I believe it's just 2 lanes, but I would refer to Daniel if there's anything as far as a center turn lane.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kirkman, that is just a local roadway, and so it will just be a standard 2-lane facility.
Okay. I think that's it. Oh, the stormwater collection, is that up in the northeast part of the property where that green space is up there? Is that where the stormwater collection will be?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, that would be the proposed location of it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you. Thanks, Parker. Thanks, Parker.
Any other questions for Parker? Okay, we'll go to public hearing. Okay, I got some people signed up here. All right, let's start with, we have against Gary Maybe, and you're on the record as against. You didn't want to speak. Kathleen Gibbons. Okay, you have come up and give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes, and you'll see a little clock ticking away on your little screen.
Okay, great. Okay, my name is Kathleen Gibbons. I live at 3818 East Green Springs Court in Nampa. I live in Clear Springs 1 subdivision. It is a dead-end street. It's right off of Avondale. I've lived there since 2004. I'm an original owner, okay? I have watched all the kids in the whole neighborhood, born, brought up, go to Ronald Reagan, traveled past Ronald Reagan every day, okay? Mr. Kirkman and I are, at least know each other. We're not, we're not best friends, but we're neighbors, okay? He lived just on the loop, on the same street I did, but then he moved into Clear Springs too. Okay, I have picked up trash along Oklahoma Avenue on my own many, many times. My Clear Springs next door Facebook shows pictures of the trash, complain. Anyways, the one thing is, we went to the park, March 31st. This picture here is different than what we were showing at the park. 37 people were there. I'm a little frustrated with Miss Suggs. She wrote down on her Gem State Planning LLC that nobody wanted apartments, but they were okay with townhomes. No. When you went to the park, everybody was against apartments, townhomes, due to the fact because all of the homes around there are houses. We didn't want to have turnover. And it is well known, you have a townhome, you have that high a density right across the street from the school, you're gonna have an awful lot of cars. You're talking, just in that, probably 200 cars coming in and out. And it's gonna be actually more with the houses all in there, okay? Construction trucks coming up and down Oklahoma Avenue. We had South Ridge that was built, 400 homes. There are right now 55 homes that aren't built in Mossy Creek yet. South Ridge, 65 lots. The ground hasn't even been broken yet along Elijah Canal area in South Ridge. So you got over 100 homes there. You got 186 apartments that's going to be built on Happy Valley and Railroad. The Chisholm subdivision that you're looking at. You've got the townhomes down on Southside Townhomes. You now have an Autumn Leaf subdivision that's being built down on Southside. You also have apartments that are being built on Greenhurst, right next to Moxie Java.
Okay, you have 1 second.
Okay, so I'm just saying, I'm opposed, traffic, too many kids in the school. Also, I just want to say this, we have a huge problem with the drainage. I have flood insurance on my home. Everybody's going to have to get flood insurance now. We can't have water going down Clear Springs 1 because that drain doesn't work.
Okay.
So anyways, I will be writing an extra long letter so that you understand all the problems I have dealt with
Okay,
over the years. Okay?
all right, thank you. Okay, Dana Ellis?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
excuse me, before we go to the next, I just need to make sure that as far as the full disclosure, and since she mentioned my name, I just want to make sure on the record, I have not talked to any residents in any of these surrounding neighborhoods, nor have they reached out to me via email, phone call, or anything like that. I just want to make sure that was on the record since my name was brought up in a public testimony.
thank you, Jeff. Okay, Dana.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dana Ellis. I live at 3111 Southside Boulevard. I'm one of the two-acre properties directly across the street from what is currently the farm, going to be a mini California site. I bought my home in 2005, traffic along Southside Boulevard. We bought it because of view. We love the view. That's going to be gone. I understand that. We did purchase our home knowing homes were probably going to eventually be built across the street. However, that's a large amount of homes. And I find it fascinating that every time I've gone to a meeting with regards to building, no traffic study is needed, yet the aggregate total of cars that are impacting Southside neighborhood has increased dramatically since 2005. With those townhomes that have gone up at Amity and Second, with the Lava subdivision south, traffic has greatly increased. I have a tremendous amount of road noise in our house, and we've got the double paned. We're thinking of trying to do noise mitigating issues ourselves. With regards to building in 153 homes, I think it was, 120 homes and 53 townhomes, whatever you want to call it, multiple family dwellings, whether or not they are rentals or whether or not they belong to any individual person, that's a huge impact on the water resources. This Nampa, to my knowledge, uses water from the aquifers that we hope get filled up annually from all the rain that we get. Oh, that's right, we're in a desert climate. We don't get a lot of rain. Snowpack, 14 or so inches a year, translates to, 1 or 2 inches of actual water. So the aquifers are actually going to go down. The farm itself, when the farmer uses water, they're using water for 6 months a year, generally speaking, unless, of course, they're running a cattle operation, which he was. But even so, his water usage did not increase during the wintertime and went down significantly. All of those homes that are going to be going in, it's 724, 365 water usage for all the landscaping. So where are they getting their water? From the aquifer. I'd like to know, are there plans for any kind of water reclamation site usage? Because that's going to be a lot of water wasted. I'm on well water. I will be heavily impacted. My family and my neighbor next to me, who's just north of us, we're going to be impacted by all that water usage. That traffic, again, is going to be increasing. Problems with trash. Right now, as it is difficult for me to get in and out of my property. I had to wait 5 minutes at Southside to enter the street. There's a huge amount of traffic. Schools in the afternoons and the morning, cars stack up. I'm fortunate, my children, yay, I've graduated, my kids have graduated. I don't have school students anymore. But I see it every day that Ronald Reagan has a huge line of cars. It slows and backs traffic up to my house, so I can't get out. It's going to impact my neighbor as well. I don't mind houses going in. I kind of expected it. I don't like the townhomes. I don't think they're part of it, the neighborhood, and they're not a good fit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Brent Flam? Did I say that correctly? Yep. All right.
I'm Brent Flam. I live in Southern Ridge, 3711 East Holly Ridge Drive. And yeah, am I supposed to say anything else?
Nope, that's.
So I do appreciate that the parties involved looking at this have changed from the apartments to the townhomes. But again, I do agree with what this gal said, that when we, a bunch of folks were gathered at the park, it was, hey, we realize it's going to be developed, but don't make it dense. And it's a little bit better, but it's still pretty dense. So currently there's some fun things going on in that area. I think three of the 4 power lines south side, technically King and Happy Valley, are all closed due to various construction. So it just happens that Ronald Reagan, East Valley, and Columbia are getting all the traffic. If anyone trying to go northbound at all through there, it's currently so bad that you have it backed up a mile from Happy Valley to Southside, and from all the way down Amity. You have Amity every which way. So traffic is definitely a problem in that area. Secondly, the Oklahoma Avenue, the sidewalk is so close to the street with the weeds and stuff that are there. My kids have very much been instructed, don't walk down that sidewalk. A car could run you over very easily. So I think if they're going to build this, they need to widen that Oklahoma Avenue more than standard because of the amount of children that are in that area walking to and from school. The last thing I just wanted to say is on the south side part, up where the Mossy something subdivision is built, I don't know who decided to let them have a weird 15-foot long left turn lane, but I was behind a school bus last week and a larger semi-truck. They can't even drive around that left turn lane going northbound without driving into the gravel. That is not built right. I don't know who allowed that or what the deal is, but somebody needs to look at it. this being a longer run, it's probably going to be wide enough you could have a left turn lane. I would hope you'd have a center turn lane on South Side because you definitely need it. But yeah, less dense, and Oklahoma needs to be wider, and some significant improvement there would be preferred by everybody I've talked to. So,
Thank you. Okay, and Crystal Flam?
Hello, I'm Crystal Flam. I live at 3711 East Holly Ridge Drive. I basically agree with everything that everyone who's against it has said. The main thing being the density. I'm also glad that it has been considered somewhat, but I agree that it doesn't seem like a good fit for that type of housing. There's not like stores and things that people are going to be walking to. It's just more of a single house area. I know that the numbers, I think the schools need to be contacted and asked about it. I know that the kindergarten classes are bigger than they have been in prior years, like 26 to 28 kids in the classes. And those numbers will definitely affect that. And also know that they have a hard time keeping enough teachers in. And I am also concerned with the safety on the Oklahoma. That sidewalk is probably, I noticed that it's supposed to be 10 feet for the pedestrian and bicycle safety. And so I would think that if a bunch of kids are walking to school, that it ought to be that way. So I think the sidewalks on both sides need to be at least 10 feet. Right now it's half that, if that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have James Broussard. We also have Annie on the record as against, and she doesn't want to speak.
Thank you. My name's James Broussard, and I live at 2984 East Onyx Court in the Gemstone subdivision. And we're a little 16-house subdivision of semi-custom homes. We have larger lots than some of the tract homes across from us. However, it's peaceful, it's quiet, traffic's already at a capacity. When we try to pull out or go somewhere, it would be our main concern is not so much that homes not be built there, but the size of the lots should be comparable to the surrounding area, which they are not. And so it would be for our property values and the interest of the community, we really, I respect that all of you are my neighbors somehow. You're in our community, you represent us, I highly respect that, and I just ask as neighbors that you'd consider the situation that we're confronted with, and there's a lot of money to be made. I would ask that we not kowtow to that mentality, instead take into consideration the genuine impact that this might have on the community at large. And it would be a very important thing I was at the park that day too, and I must say that I concur with what's been said. And we all want larger lots. We all want no multiple family housing in that development. And I just pray that you guys, as our representatives, will see fit to help us. We stand at your, we just hope that you see things our way a little bit here. And I'm not asking you to stop the development, but I think we need to really take a step back. I read online today 60% decrease in people coming to the area, okay? We're going still full out, we being the area here, this whole valley. They're building things everywhere. And they're not being always careful about what they're building and how it may affect the community. And I just hope, I've seen this, we're from Reno, Nevada, and we've been here for a couple of years, and we love it. And I just want it to be peaceful. I'd like to keep the crime down. And I think my suggestions will help do that. So I hope that you can see fit to follow what I've asked.
Thank you. Okay, that's everybody I have signed up. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? Okay. Oh, I got the people, I still have people for, sorry. Thanks, Steve. I'm going for, okay, so we got the people for. We have Fred DePold. Go ahead, come on up. I needed coffee, I guess, instead of water tonight.
Give me one, too. Greetings. Yeah, Fred DePold, 1105 2nd Street South. Unfortunately, I got to spend some time of my time to clarify some things that were mentioned. I've followed the project fairly close, and I know when the original concept was brought to the neighborhood meeting, they had fourplexes there. The big difference is those were rentals. You know, an investor owns those, and it's a higher density. So the developer chose to greatly reduce the density. These are single-family homes. You call them townhomes, but they're not rentals. They reduce the density, and so that's the difference there, greatly lower. The right-of-way, I think, needs to be addressed. There's talk about Oklahoma Avenue and South Side. South Side is going to be an 80-foot wide right-of-way with a 10-foot sidewalk and a turning lane. I feel that's going to improve the traffic flow. And Oklahoma, it is very dangerous right now. It's very narrow. This development expands that to a 56-foot right-of-way. Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was looking at the plans in detail. And so it makes it a 56-foot right-of-way. It puts curb gutter and sidewalk, landscaping, and a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side where there's nothing currently. So this really improves the whole traffic flow and pedestrian flow as well. So what I wanted to say for my time is this property became a ranch in 1893. It had on-site cowboys living there in the ranch homes, and it's been a ranch ever since. It's now an infill, and as Kent mentioned, it's difficult for them to operate there. And so it's time. It's an infill, all the benefits there. There's already police and fire protection. And so I feel this is a smart growth subdivision. I mean, if you look at the description of a smart growth, it has multiple lot size. The lot sizes do match the density and size on the outside border, and it has a mix. I feel it's all the connectivity of the sidewalks and paths. It connects to the north, the south, the east, and the west, and it gets a lot of those people off of the roads and the busy roads and through the subdivision. And so I think that's a huge benefit. I think this subdivision exceeds our expectations in safety, amenities, open space. I mean, look at all the amenities, pickleball court. That's going to be very popular. I have friends that live right next door, and they say, we're going there to play pickleball. It's got covered picnic area, barbecue areas. It's got another shelter area. I think there's 6 amenities total here. Basically, I'm in favor of this subdivision. I think it's good for the community. I think it will benefit the neighborhood. It's going to greatly improve safety for the kids at the school and just traffic flow.
Thank you. Okay, Hubert Osborne.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Zoning Commission. My name is Hubert Osborne. My wife and I reside at 4199 East Switzer Way. It's just about our house is just about a quarter of a mile from the edge of the subdivision, but we were not invited to the community get-together. To start off with, I think the variety of housing and the pathways, which are a thing that I push everywhere I go, is quite an improvement. This is the last big piece of property in this section to be developed, and you could all see it coming. I think it's makes a lot more sense than going halfway to Dry Lake or wherever some of these other subdivisions are going. Traffic is always a problem, and I encourage you to vote for roundabouts when you have a chance. My main topic, if you turn to page 104, where the it puts up the sketch. If you go from that drain from Oklahoma down to the Elijah Drain, which is the Deal Drain, it's nothing but a weed patch now, and although they're going to put a pathway along the side of it, there's nothing being done about the weed patch in the center. And I looked at it the other day, and there's a pipe that puts a considerable amount of, I think it's irrigation water, down that drain. So my proposal would be to put a pipe down that drain to the Elijah Drain. There's more than one way to do it, but I think it says in the, where you have the 20-foot pathway along the edge of the Deal Drain, does that pathway go to the edge of the drain, or do you have the pathway and then 20 feet to the drain? Nampa Meridian Irrigation has been very good about allowing the pathway being right up to the drain. I think that if I'm missing it,
We'll ask and find out. We'll ask Daniel after public testimony.
okay. My preference would be to have it piped and that drain covered up. And you could even put the pathway on the other side, because that's right away for Nampa Meridian Irrigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jerry Dixon.
My name is Jerry Dickerson. I live at 3615 South Raintree Drive in Napa. I've been here for about 20 years. I'm very much in favor of this project. And a couple of things that I might add on the positive side is there's 5 acres of open space and 5.5 miles of sidewalks that are included in this subdivision. And I'm very much in favor of the density. I mean, it's half of what it could be. So I'm very much in support of it, and that's about all I got to say. Oops, crunch. I lost that. All right. Well, thank you. I'll get it together here.
Okay, and then we had Lisa DePold that was on the record as for, but doesn't want to speak. Okay, I'm not missing anything. Okay, now I have nobody else that signed up. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? Okay, Kent, you want to come back up and?
Madam Chair, we'd like to recommend that Daniel address traffic concerns
Sure.
first, and then have the applicant respond.
Okay, Daniel.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, A traffic study has been done and reviewed and approved by the engineering department and our consultants that look at those for us. It has found that there are, let me get back to it. Okay. That they will be responsible to construct a southbound left turn lane at their entrance, as well as the need for a signal or roundabout. Roundabout is what's been selected in our transportation master plan for treatment at Southside and Locust. That is on our capital improvement plan for our impact fees. And so there will be some working with the developer, and there will be impact fee contribution to perform that improvement. Looking at that, those are what they found, the traffic impact study found are the needed improvements. The widening of Oklahoma is going to happen with the development out to a full roadway section that we would see in any normal situation here. It will not have a center turn lane. The volumes there do not warrant that. And so it will just be a two-lane facility with sidewalks on both sides, which would be standard and would meet the capacity for the amount of traffic that we actually see there. I think that was all the questions. Addressing the turn lane and the taper on the subdivision to the north, while not necessarily applicable to this one, that was due to right-of-way constraints of a property that is not part of the city, and so we do not have the right-of-way in order to make that less abrupt. This development, though, they have their entire frontage, and they will be able to do that differently for this development.
Awesome.
Madam Chair, there was also a question about aquifer and water
Yes,
capacity.
water. Thank you. So the city has been heavily engaged with the Idaho Department of Water Resources in regards to the aquifer capacity and the amount of water that is available for use in the valley for development and on both the domestic side and on the irrigation side. On the domestic side of things, this would be served by the city's existing well network. This would not increase the need for a new well. We have existing facilities in this area that will serve this without the need for any new wells. For the irrigation side of things, the ground or the surface water rights that are used to irrigate this land now would be transferred into the municipal irrigation system and would still be used to water the lawns and that. There would not be an increase in surface water demand from changing this one to the other. In our conversations with the Idaho Department of Water Resources, the aquifer that the city is tapped into for our system is very healthy and has plenty of capacity for the growth that we are seeing now and into the future.
Awesome.
So,
thank you, Daniel.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Jeff.
there was a question brought up about the drainage, and there was some flooding that had happened in those neighborhoods. Can you speak to that a little bit, Parker? Or, I'm sorry, not Parker, Daniel. My apologies.
I want to let Parker. That'll be fun. Yeah, Commissioner Kirkman, I'm not. I know there have been drainage issues in the past in this area. There were issues with some storm drains that had to be cleaned, and that there's nothing recent that I am aware of. We can certainly look at that. With the drain between these two properties, I would not anticipate any drainage impact from this development impacting the other side of the Deal Drain.
When you talk about the drain between these two properties, you're talking about Elijah Drain or?
So the Elijah Drain runs at the very northeast corner of the development.
Right.
The Deal Drain runs between this development and the Clear Springs development there on Avondale Place and that.
Okay, so I do know in the very southeast corner of this property, right up against Oklahoma, there's two collection areas there. One is for Clear Springs, and the other one's quite larger for that other neighborhood. I can't remember the name of it.
Southern Ridge.
Southern Ridge. That drain does back up every single, well, I can't say every single year because it's only been there for a year or two, but it has been backed up since that neighborhood went into development, and it just festers and it turns nasty and it smells and it just doesn't drain. So I think there is some concern about this amount of development going in that same area and whether or not it'll properly drain.
So one of the things we have worked with on that development is there's a significant amount of rock in that Southern Ridge area. If I remember reviewing the drainage report for this development, that is not the case in this development. And that's some of what contributes to that issue over there. I don't believe this would have, being lower lying and downstream from that, I don't believe this would exacerbate that issue.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions for Daniel?
I did have another question. I don't know if Daniel can answer this or not, but it's the Communities in Motion. It's on page 104, and I think Mr. Osborne had alluded to this. But I see, and maybe whatever staff could respond to this, but they have those 4 boxes: safety, convenience, economic vitality, and then quality of life. How come there isn't anything checked in quality of life and all the other ones are checked? Is there a reason for that, or am I missing something there?
Do you want to take that one, or? So the Communities in Motion is the Compass report. We have found it to be of less value as we look at specific land uses and specific developments than when we look at overriding goals of the Communities in Motion plan.
So quality of life is less important?
Well, that's...
Use your words carefully.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I could probably speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
We've had conversations with Compass about this report that they do, and we just need more clarification about what that means. Quality of life, what does that mean? And we're not really sure how they calculate it, except for, I do know that they factor in the services in proximity to the development. So maybe that's part of that. The quality of life is impacted because you don't have other services nearby. But it has been a little challenging to interpret these reports from that agency.
Yeah, because in the convenience section, it looks like services are mentioned in there, like the critical services and transportation choices and public schools and parks and things like that. So maybe it's is a grocery store there, or is it easy to get to, a gas station or whatever that kind of. So I agree with you. I agree with you, Rodney, that there probably should be, because these come up fairly regularly in these big developments, and it'd be nice to have some explanation of that.
Thank you, Daniel.
More questions?
No, that's all I had. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the indulgence.
For the record, Kent Brown, 3161 East Springwood. I appreciate Daniel so much. his knowledge and what he's done over the last couple decades, hasn't it, Daniel? This is what he's always wanted to do, and he does a great job at it in answering those questions. As I look at the questions that were involved, I think Daniel's addressed many of them, especially because that was traffic and sidewalk and what's being built and the drainage. Tiling the deal and the Elijah doesn't help recharge the aquifer. That's what drains do. That's a part of what takes place with the drain. We are tiling the ditch that goes through the middle of our site, and that's the north-south along the west side of the existing homestead. But that is a delivery ditch. And turning that into a pathway that the pedestrians can travel on. We have no apartments. We have no multifamily. Everything in this development is single family. Because they own the ground that's underneath it, it is viewed as single family, whether it's a fourplex or a sixplex or whatever, I think, according to your code, isn't it? Because that does change jurisdictional wise, but a true townhouse is talking about owning the land that's underneath it. A condominium, they own the airspace within the unit. And it provides that diversity in the product type that I tried talking about initially, and why this becomes what we would view as a quality of life type of issue. A number of years ago, I did Tuscany, that's in Meridian, and we provide from the smallest 1,200 square foot units backing onto open space like these do to estate type housing. It makes a neighborhood really livable, and it sounds like Jeff has wanted to live in the neighborhood and has moved to a different place. That's kind of what we're hoping that takes place with this. I don't view this being all entry level. I think that you're going to have the diversity in here because of the diversity of the products that we're providing. We did reach out to the school district, and they have a capacity at Ronald Reagan for 659, and their current enrollment's at 517. So we've, in talking with the school district, they said where Valley View is being overcrowded, Nampa schools have not had that problem. This is the feedback that I've been given. Road noise, and the neighbor that spoke that's on South Side, the thing that is kind of typical of us and development, as a general rule, we have a landscape berm that's going to be along South Side and along Oklahoma that kind of buffers those kind of noises. I live off of Eagle Road across from St. Luke's Meridian, and know a little bit about road noise, and everywhere that there's that berm, there isn't the noise other than the police and the ambulances going to the hospital. It can be quite different. People step into my backyard and are surprised that it's as quiet as it is. I think that I've answered all of the questions. We viewed this because of the infill and it being an enclave, that it is the right time and is appropriate. Many of the neighbors talked about the developments that they're in some way or another. I've had some input being before this board, for example, with Southern Ridge and bringing that forward. And And that project's been around for a number of years. Just because we get this approved doesn't mean that this is immediately going to be built. The submitted plan for this had 4 phases. But if the economy continues like it is and interest rates, that is going to cause a slowing, and it isn't going to take place as quickly. And that's typical and normal development. I mean, we're not talking about anything different, and I think that we should all kind of look forward to that helps bring down some of these prices. But at the same time, to meet those needs, you need to provide different products that allow people to get in at an entry level, even though the price maybe isn't as low as possible. I don't think that we're going to see the low prices that we were used to and that many of us bought our houses and so forth with. That just isn't the case any longer.
There was one more question. The distance from the pathway to the drain, is it right up against the drain?
It is not.
Okay.
And the Parks has asked for a 20-foot easement, and that they want 5 feet on either side and a 10-foot path in the middle is what they want. The Nampa Meridian is a part of the reason why the weeds were called out from the code enforcement is it's the weeds that are along there, and they clean those facilities over the winter. They don't do that during the year, and it does create a difference. If you can look at our neighbors to the east, their lots go all the way back and include part of that easement, and so part of their ground that they own is in that area. We're not doing that. That's a part of what makes this and that 5 acres of open space that we're providing, and it's the qualified open space that you're all looking for that is being used, and it doesn't have the storm drain pond in it or something like that. It's the area that you can use, and so we've not encumbered those neighbors with that. And it takes a little bit, 5 acres. I mean, if we're typical like some of the surrounding development that's around us, you wouldn't like the project. You've changed the rules since most of those have gone in, and you've demanded a lot more open space. And we're complying with that and exceeding that. And so I believe that we brought you a good project, and I'll stand on that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ken? Okay, thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to close public.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
due to the fact that my name has been brought up during public testimony and so that I can sleep tonight with a clear conscience, I'm going to abstain from voting on this particular agenda item, and I know that you have a quorum also without my vote, so I think that would be most appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
No discussion?
I think I like what Kent brought up, the fact that this is a single-family residential neighborhood, right? It is all single-family residences, and whether or not a structure has lawn all the way around it, it still doesn't just mean that it's not a single-family residence, and it's just a different housing type. And when you look at the site plan that's been presented, and you look where those townhomes are, look at all the green around those. That could be so much more dense than it is. And so there's not that many more buildings. It's just that there's more single-family residences in the one building, right? And so I like the project. I like the variety of the project, and I like what the project is doing in an infill and also to provide, and alleviate some of the problems that are talked about as far as the traffic and the sidewalks and getting kids safely to here and there. This is going to check a lot of those boxes. And so for that reason, I think I like this project.
I agree with you. An infill project like this is a double-edged sword. The people that are already living there, most of these people that are out here, they don't like it. But I understand that because I've lived in a house and then they built houses around me. Nobody ever likes that. That's human nature. You want your open space, you want your view, you want everything to remain the same. But reality is not the way it works that way. Kent has done a good job, as I mentioned earlier, of putting in a project that the city can live with. It's not overburdensome to our city streets. It's actually improving the city streets by Oklahoma there. It has a lot of open space. It's got the pathway. An infill project to me and to the city is something that is beneficial all around. Unfortunately, like I said, the neighbors don't normally like that. But we've had, 4 or 5 neighbors? How often do we have 5 neighbors come up and say they're in favor of something like this? Very rare. So I think that the general consensus is this is a good project.
And I think another point that you pointed out earlier is the fact that they've put the largest lots on
Yeah.
the perimeter in a nod to the neighbors, really,
Correct. They could have put the small ones on the outside. They could have done that, but they did not.
I also think it's a good project as well. I agree with both of you, and it's right in line with our comp plan. The plat looks good, really good as far as open space is concerned, and variety of housing types, diversity, and products, so people can start with a home and stay in the community and move up. So,
Whereas Jeff did move out.
I'm in support of this project as well.
I think that's kind of the city's direction, isn't it? To have multiple housing types in one area, specifically for those reasons. I live just down the street. It is going to impact traffic. I know it will. But that's how we improve traffic, is through growth. So I'd love it if a grocery store would go in, but I don't have the development money to buy a big piece of property and put in a grocery store. So eventually it will come, I'm sure. But for now, I think it's a good project. I like it.
Tom?
No, I'm in agreement with you guys. I like the townhomes right across from the elementary school because most likely that's going to be young couples with young kids. They can walk them across the street. That's one less car that's got to drive to that school to drop off their kids every morning. So I think that's a great place for it. It's right there, and that's what most likely those will most likely be younger couples for the most part. So I'm in favor of it.
I agree. I think it's a good infill project.
Okay, well, since no one else will make a motion, I will make a motion to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to RS6 and RD zoning districts and subdivision preliminary plat for 7 Maple subdivision at 3000 Southside Boulevard for Jim State Planning representing Charles Kunerth, Corey Barton, with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that goes on. Okay. All right, public hearing item number 4, conditional use permit for multifamily housing in a BC and IL zoning district. Do we have the applicant here?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Keith James, 120 West Cataldo Avenue, Spokane, Washington, 99201. Thank you for having me here tonight, here to talk about our proposed affinity active adult community. But first, a little bit about us. We're a Spokane, Washington-based developer, but also general contractor, property manager, and owner. So important to note that we will not just be here briefly, but be here for the long term. We currently have 27 similar communities, affinity branded active adult communities. It's important to note they're not traditional retirement housing. It's essentially highly amenitized apartments that are age restricted, so 55 plus occupancy requirement. In terms of the amenities themselves, there's a ton to list. Indoor amenities include a fitness center, a game room, a craft room, a resident lounge, a theater room, a business center or internet cafe, a dog spa, Dilly Dally's Pub, which is a popular place, and a pool house with an indoor heated swimming pool and spa. And outdoor amenities include landscape grounds, of course, and walking paths, a barbecue area, outdoor fireplace and lounge, pickleball court, which I think this is the third or fourth time pickleball has been mentioned this evening, covered porte-cochere entryway, community gardens, bike storage, and a dog park. So this specific project is planned for 167 units. It's a mix of just a few studios and then about 50-50 mix of one bedroom and two bedroom apartment homes. As I mentioned, we have 27 affinity communities in 7 states. The nearest here is Affinity at Boise, and that's at Eagle and Ustick, or just north of that intersection. I think that was our 3rd affinity community ever, so the product has evolved and improved over the years. This is kind of affinity version 3.0 at this point. I did want to talk a little bit about the proposed site plan. We're under contract to purchase from the folks that are developing the light industrial to the north of the site. So the roadway on the west is just being cut in now and proposed to serve both that development and our development. So you see we orient our front door toward that new roadway. We also have oriented much of our site plan to minimize impacts on neighbors as much as possible. We're about 180 feet from the short ends of the building to our property line. And then, of course, there's more distance between the property line and the nearest home. And then to the main section of the building, it's at least another 60 feet. So considerable setbacks. We're also remaining at the 3-story height limit. Of the 27 affinity communities, just one other community is 3-story. The rest are 4 or taller. So luckily, we have the site area to accommodate a 3-story building here. A couple of notes about parking specifically. Across the portfolio, the parking demand that we see is about 1.5 stalls per unit, and we provide about 1.5 to 1.6 stalls per unit as a general rule. And that's largely because even though we have about 50% 2 bedrooms, only 21% of our units are actually occupied by 2 people, and none are occupied by more than 2 people. So naturally, a parking demand is considerably less. We're not asking for a parking variance. We're meeting the parking code of 2.0, 2 stalls per unit. But we're doing that partially with some off-site shared parking that's still very close and quite accessible to the Affinity building. One quick clarification to one of the comments that was provided. I believe it was the fire department's comment, noted 167 units of single-family housing and 500 residents. So I just note that my testimony regarding the 21% double occupancy, which equates to about 202 residents roughly, rather than the 500. And finally, I note that this project represents an investment, a total investment of about $45 million, of which a one-time use tax is about $750,000, park impact fee of a little less than $400,000, fire impact fee of about $266,000, police impact fee of $102,000, and streets fee of about $280,000. So in addition to the one-time use tax of $750,000, that's over, or it's just about $1.05 million of impact fees to be generated by the property. I will finally just note that we had a neighborhood meeting that was very lightly attended. Just a couple, husband and wife, that live not to the home that you can see here, but a little bit further north, one of the several homes there. Their biggest concern, frankly, was traffic, which we've, again, tried to mitigate to the best of our ability. We have just the new road cut in for primary access from Cherry. The eastern entry is proposed to be a fire access lane only. So with that, I'll stand for any questions after any other comment.
I have a question on the, well, it's 55 plus, you said, right?
Correct.
Most of these people are going to be like me. Well, I'm over
60?
I'm over. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're not going to get my vote like that, so forget it. And you're having 3-story buildings.
Correct.
Are they going to have elevators?
Absolutely.
All of them?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's one large building. The pool building is separate, so it doesn't have an elevator, but it's single story. There are 2 elevators kind of at the ends of that, of the center of the H shape.
Is
So
one of the elevators large enough to put like furniture and things into it?
absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You may have questions after.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested from you tonight is the approval or denial of a conditional use permit for multifamily housing in a BC and IL zoning district. The parcel is currently split zoned. This happened when the property was annexed, and it was misplanned, I guess you could say. The regulation that the code specifies is that we would take the most restrictive zoning and apply it here, which would be the BC zoning district. The surrounding land use to the north are industrial shell buildings at the moment. Those will be filled eventually as they're built. To the south is HC, that's St. Luke's. To the east is county, ag and single-family home. And to the west is also county, single-family home. History, this parcel was annexed in February of 2020. Cherry Midland Industrial Project, the industrial project to the north, is currently under construction and review, and will be bringing utilities along the roadway with that development. The conclusions of law that would be applicable here, the location, size, and design and operating characteristics of the project will need to be compatible with and not adversely affect the livability of the appropriate development of abutting properties. Staff finds that the applicant will need to submit documentation of a parking agreement that shows there is not a conflict between the operating hours of the proposed use and the uses to the north, that they're sharing parking, so that there won't be leaving the property underparked, and to avoid conflict with the adjoining properties. The location, design, and site plan of the project will need to provide a convenient and functional living, working, shopping, civic environment, and be as attractive as the nature of the use and its location. Staff finds the property will be required to follow design review requirements in Title 10, Chapter 34, and that will go to the design review committee. The last conclusion here, the project will enhance the successful operation of the surrounding area and its basic community function. Staff finds that the proposed development will provide additional housing for a specific demographic, then that can be viewed as an essential service. The further applicable regulations, the fencing, I just wanted to point this out because the proposed site plan shows fencing along Cherry. The fencing will need to follow design review requirements, being that it needs to be ornamental in design and have at least 2 materials. The other requirement is they need to provide at least 5% in open space, which they provide a long list of amenities and open space for that. Further, the parking requirement, the applicant covered that. As far as the shared parking agreement, they are able to provide the shared parking agreement under 3 conditions as it states in code. One being that they provide documentation that there will be no substantial conflict between the operating hours of the 2 uses. That the agreement be recorded with the county recorder's office, and that the parcels be within 300 feet of each other's property lines. So here's the overall development site plan with the industrial pieces to the north, and the project site here, the zoomed in site plan. You can see the garages on the east side. Those are garages, and then there's carports in the back side of the site, as well as on the southern side. Those are carports. Elevations here, again, this will go to the design review committee. The correspondence, regular building correspondence, police recommending commitment to fund 0.74 additional officers, 0.25 staff. The development is 3.1 miles from Fire Station 4, response time of 10 minutes. As the applicant pointed out, the calculation that they use to come up with the number of residents is based off a standard multifamily project. This product is a little different, so that amount will be a little bit less. The engineering comments, right-of-way has already been dedicated, and frontage improvements will be made upon development. The traffic impact study was done with the Cherry Midland Industrial Development to the north of this, and they're putting in the turn lane for that. Nampa Bike and Ped Master Plan identifies a future pathway along Cherry, and the utilities are all being brought with that industrial development. The lot is designated as community mixed use. There's a variety of uses that are nearby, the hospital to the south. There's a number of county parcels to the east and west. The Treasure Valley Marketplace is within a mile and would provide a lot of essential services. Again, the comp plan states that it's in the public interest to provide a variety of housing types. We've talked about design review and parking as well, so I won't cover those again. One thing to note, the number of spaces required is 335. On site, they're providing 276. And then the rest will be provided via shared parking agreement. The conditions of approval are in the staff report and here in the presentation, and a potential motion, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker? Okay, we'll go to public hearing. Okay, for the proposal, I have Keith James. So, So you're for it, which is good. Against, we have Catherine and William Myers, and Catherine would like to speak.
I'm Brett Show and Tell. Can I come and give you some pictures?
You have to give it to her. Oh.
Thank you.
Got a new fancy dancy? All right. Okay, give us your name and address.
My name's Catherine Myers, 9802 Cherry Lane. We are directly west of the property. And I'm going to talk really fast because I have a lot to say, so pardon me. When the original hearing was set for the proposal for the original development of the office building next door to us, I voiced, prior to the property being sold to this company, we came and testified, and I was assured that one of the things was there would not be a road going down adjacent to our property line. Since that time, a city of Nampa annexed it, and there is a road called North Admar Avenue that is directly down our property line. So I'm pretty disappointed that that has happened. We are very small. We're 5.49 acres. We have cattle, goats, cats, dogs, and grandkids. The other thing that we were told is that there would be a privacy fence, a berm and a privacy fence down the length of our property. However, what's being proposed is a landscape buffer strip and a privacy fence of this property, which is 17400 Midland Avenue. That's the original, that's their entrance. If you go to the next picture, that's the fence directly along Midland. That is not a privacy fence. Along it is a metal fence. And then if you go to the next one, what is a privacy fence is the metal fence surrounded with, that is plastic tarp. That is not a privacy fence. So that is the property at 17400 Midland. That is in the documentation that we received from Planning and Zoning dated February 20, 2020. The other thing is that the property is 35 feet from the property line. You add 10 feet for the buffer zone, and that's 45 feet from the edge of the property to our deck and our back door. 45 feet is not an awful lot to have a road running parallel to our property that we have animals and grandkids running around. So I'd like some clarification also on the fence to see what that is. Is the buffer strip going to be a berm, or is it just a landscaped strip? And the fence, obviously, we want some sort of privacy fence to divide an agricultural residential from an awful big parcel that you just saw. In addition, this gentleman, who I would love to talk to afterwards, said that it'd be 1.5 to 1.6 stalls per unit. That's 250 stalls equals a minimum probably of 250 cars. It takes 10 minutes on a good day to get out of our driveway. So I would like to know, has there been a traffic study, which we told that there would be? Has there been a traffic study done? Also, running along the perimeter, along the different parties, is an original little concrete agricultural ditch. Somewhere, Planning and Zoning or someone told us that they have given that over to Pioneer Irrigation to be removed. We would like to make sure that that irrigation ditch gets removed because we're tired of cleaning it out, which we have for the last 2 years. So those are the questions that I have, if you have any answers to that.
We'll ask the applicant. Okay, thank you very much.
Do I ask this gentleman, or?
No, we will.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, nobody else is on my sign-up sheet. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? Come on up. You know how this works.
So if I'm undecided, I get 6 minutes? No, I'm teasing. My name's Brent Flam. I live at 3711 East Holly Ridge Drive. So this is probably more directed towards the city than the developer here, but one question on that was he talked about remote parking and seniors and such. My parents are of an age that they would live in something like that. I can't imagine my mom or dad being willing to walk outside the length of that property to go use some remote parking. That seems like a silly idea. If it doesn't meet the standard in the lot that they have, then they probably ought to provide a different plan there, because I can't imagine that. I mean, none of us park more than 4 stalls away from the edge of the Walmart, you know? So anyway, I think that would be a silly go around. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, I do think that from my viewpoint that having the denser housing, which was such a topic in the previous proposal, closer to the retail establishments makes more sense to me. And the other comment I'll make is I live like 9 miles from that. All the people that supported the last one lived more than 5 miles away. So her voice, in my opinion, is worth 10 of mine, because she lives there and I live 10 miles away, even though I am a Nampa city resident. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, you want to come on up and address some questions?
And if I could show a couple of items.
Sure.
So the first item I wanted to share, and first of all, I will back up and admit a little bit that the industrial developer is responsible for the roadway. That's under a separate permit. It just started construction, and whatever's been approved in terms of the berm and landscape buffer. The one thing I can show on this colored site plan, the gray roadway to the west of the site, that's the midpoint of the new roadway. So there's another half to the west. And then if you can see the note on the bottom, I believe it's 35 feet. That's the buffer between the edge of the road and the Myers property. So I believe, certainly planned for landscaping. I'm not sure if it's a buffer, a berm buffer or what it is, but we could, I don't know if the traffic engineer has that info or can find it, but it's a 35-foot wide strip all along that edge for buffering. And this second thing to share, this image, if you can pull that down just a little bit. Again, the point on the shared parking is in 27 other communities, it's absolutely not needed. And there's no reason to believe that it would be needed in Nampa any more than any other community. The parking demand just won't be more than 1.6 stalls per unit at most, and we're providing that many on site. The ones highlighted in green are the additional 59 stalls to get to the city's requirement. And the vast majority of those, I would say 70%, are within the same amount of walking distance as some of the main parking stalls. So we wouldn't do it just as we're doing this to check the box. We know it's in excess of what we'll need, but if for some crazy reason we're much more occupied with double occupants than history suggests, then we'll have adequate parking for that. Did I miss any questions or concerns?
The fence, what kind of fence were you going to have?
Well, so around our property, what's proposed is like a metal fence, a wrought iron style fence. But I think she's specifically referring to the buffer fence along the edge of the landscape buffer, and I just don't know what that is.
Was there a traffic study?
A traffic study will be completed, yes. Is completed, thank you.
So we can ask Daniel about the traffic study then. Okay. Is there any other questions for the applicant? I need the gallery to be quiet, please. We are not taking any more comments from the public. Did you have any more questions for the applicant?
I think so.
Okay, we'll ask Daniel about that. Daniel, can you come up and address the traffic study?
Madam Chair, while he's coming up, I'll address the conditions that were part of the annexation of the piece. The two requirements that they're referring to was a 10-foot landscape buffer along the west property line and a 6-foot tall privacy fence along that property line. There was no condition for a berm in that.
Madam Chair, a traffic study has been completed by the developer of the industrial portion. As we look at the traffic generation from a facility like this or any residential facility, it is lower than the traffic generated by commercial, industrial, retail facilities. And so while this was not specifically contemplated in that traffic study, the traffic volumes that were used to analyze the capacities and the needs are higher than what this would generate. And so therefore, we did not require them to go back and update that study because this will generate less traffic than the previous proposal.
That's based on the BC zoning in the front and the IL in the back?
And was there any traffic?
So they are required to do a turn lane at that approach, at that roadway. And so that is already designed and is part of the construction for the industrial portion. As the developer said, that is underway and this would not be allowed to get occupancy until that's complete.
All right.
So why is the traffic generated from residential less than commercial or industrial? Is that just because it's 2 trips, one in the morning, one at night, versus trips all day long to a commercial establishment and
So generally speaking,
out of warehouses with trucks and things like that?
Generally speaking, yes, and that's all based on observed data that goes into the trip generation manuals that are the industry standard and used not only here, but throughout the United States and other places.
Any other questions for Daniel? Okay. I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
So Parker, the privacy fence around the industrial is yet to be built.
Madam Chair and Commissioner, the building permit for the industrial pieces, as far as I know, are still under review. And they're working out the landscaping and the fencing, but those will have to be there as they're part of the conditions of the annexation.
I'm sorry, we have public testimony closed, so we can't take any comments from the gallery right now.
You'd have to
You'll
follow
have
up
to,
with staff after the meeting or now or
or he'll just come over there.
Rodney's going.
Hey, Parker, this is Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So again, I'm sorry, just clarification on the privacy fence. That was just for the north part of this property along the industrial development that's going on, correct?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, as you can see, this site plan here, all the industrial pieces and this proposed site plan were all part of the annexation. So the landscaping and the privacy fence will extend all the way along the western portion of this.
From Perry Lane all the way up the side of the property? Okay. And it was just, there was no discussion about whether that fence would be sitting on top of a 6-foot or a 4-foot or whatever type of berm. It was just a privacy fence.
There was no mention of a berm in the conditions of approval of the annexation.
All right. Thank you.
I like the proposal. I think right across from the hospital.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I agree. I think, when I first looked at this, I didn't realize it was right across from the hospital, but then I got into it more in depth. I said, wow, that's a good place for it, and it's almost walkable.
Yeah, and you got the medical offices and everything right there, and, yeah.
And the shopping is
There-
right close by. I mean, I don't know what you're missing. If it's got everything you need right there.
I like it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great location for it. I wish they'd get rid of the industrial and put in more of this.
Jeff, you had a comment?
No, I'm just kind of chuckling when this is a 55 and older project, and Steve's saying it's perfect right next to the hospital. Like, you know, people who are 55 have to live next to a hospital. That's what I was chuckling at.
You'll get there.
Aren't you?
We'll all get there at some point, huh?
Yep.
No, I think this is a good project too. I love the design, and I think Nampa needs more of these types of projects. I don't see very many of them around, and if there are, they're much smaller scale. So I think it's a good project and a good location for this too.
Yeah, and the amenities are great. I mean, you know, it's,
Mm-hmm.
I never played pickleball, but I probably get used to it or something.
Madam Chair, if I could just add one more thing.
Yes.
If you're set on this site plan, we would probably recommend that you add that they comply with the proposed site plan and the conditions. Otherwise, they would be open to any kind of multifamily.
Did everybody talk at one time?
Well, I'll make a motion then if nobody else has any comments. So I'll move to approve additional use permit for multifamily housing in a BC and IL zoning district for 7.05 acre parcel at 9778 East Cherry Lane for Affinity at Napa LLC representing ZD Investment Property LLC with all conditions of staff and conclusions of law, including the proposed or site plan that they presented tonight. And do we need to put the 55 and over restriction on there so they can't change that?
Madam Chair and Commissioner, I would question the legality of it.
Yeah, I would too.
That's true.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. This conditional use permit is approved. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with the Planning and Zoning staff there have been no appeals. That's it, folks.
Go back to number 2.
Oh.
Number 2.
Oh, man. I was running for the hills. Okay, now we get Rodney to tell us all this good stuff.
I approve.
Ready, set?
I believe everything Rodney says, so go ahead.
Are we taking a break?
No,
They are, but
Rodney will just talk loudly so they can hear him in the restroom.
Do we want to proceed?
No, let's wait a minute.
Those other guys leave?
They just use the
Bathroom.
facilities.
Oh, on a
Usually
little
we
break.
have a
All right.
formal break, but they just got up and left, so. I don't know.
I've got a bed 5 feet from me in this hotel room. It's very hard to not take a break myself.
Well,
Where are you hiding at?
we'll wake you up. We'll have that timer set with the nice little chime at the end.
uh-oh.
I guess we are taking an official break.
Yeah,
on break.
official break.
We've been on break.
Off the record, right?
Oh, do you have that in? So unfortunately, we have to have that. We have to keep them. Can I bring it back? Or just got it? We were just talking about that. We need a copy. Okay, that's fine. Looks like you have a digital copy. Could you send us a digital copy? Of those? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You have those available now? We just have to make sure that. That are marked up.
Do we keep them?
Having a discussion in the lobby and they like the pictures. Yeah, he could bring them right back. I mean, they're just using them for a discussion in the lobby. I think that's what he was getting at. But how do they know they're not gonna go out there and fool with them?
You can trust developers.
No, that was it. That was a good, good thing to say, Parker. Make sure you frickin' tie him to this thing, because otherwise. Have we ever heard anything more on the piece of property that's just further south of this last property? The one on South Side? It was on South Side and Locust. Remember they were gonna do like a small restaurant? Yeah, it was gonna be, it was like east of Lava Springs. It was gonna be a restaurant and storage unit.
Are you done? Can we go now?
Yeah, he's all done.
Yeah, the southwest corner, or southeast corner.
And how are they gonna get by with 55 and older legally? I thought we
You
talked
can
about this.
restrict it.
They can.
They can, yeah, they can restrict
They
it.
can't, we can't. But they can.
They can restrict it.
Yeah.
We can't. Oh. Well, that's a good thing to know
The
then.
one- There's one right behind the village in Meridian that they did.
All right, Rodney, we're ready.
Hey, get this over with, huh?
5 minutes, Rodney. Go.
Oh, by the way, whoever's doing the clock, good job. Is that you, Rodney, doing the clock?
No, he does the clock
Who does the clock?
over here.
Oh, thank you.
It is, it's wonderful.
We need a little more annoying beep though after the third time.
not
So
such
they get the idea.
It gets progressively.
Maybe strobe lights go off in their eyes or something.
All right, set the clock, 3 minutes.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this may go that quick. This is a zoning text amendment that we just missed in our last updates because we weren't doing a lot to the other chapters, some of these chapters. But then when we looked at it, we said, we better just make sure that we address a couple of things in those chapters that we weren't diving into details on. So this is the request. Applicable regulations is that essentially it just has to be in the interest of the public, in harmony with the goals and or policies of the adopted comprehensive plan and reasonably necessary. So the history, I kind of addressed that already. We try to do code changes twice a year and every 6 months do those changes. So we compile them all together and we send them off. And then we wait again 6 months before we do the next ones. But this one, before it went to city council, we just said, let's make this quick correction because we hadn't looked at chapters 14, 15, and 16 and felt like they were necessary to make these quick changes. So the two changes are, we changed a building, references to building to structure. And what we were finding is that cell towers, we would often say, hey, building height can be this high. Well, what is a cell tower? Is it a building or is it a structure? So we changed that, and same thing with carport and gazebo, things like that, just to provide some clarity. I can go into the details if you want, but that's basically it. The second one is front yard setbacks are measured from the property line or future right-of-way where known or determined by the city engineer. So what's happening is we were getting some applications in that they would say the setback is from the property line, and yet we knew that the roadway expansion would eventually happen and sidewalks would be put in there, and your setback now is actually right behind the sidewalk. So This is to correct that, to say if it's on a master plan for transportation master plan, that we need a certain amount of right-of-way, that setback would be taken from that future right-of-way. So that's pretty much it. These are the recommended findings. We're going to try to start changing the way we handle our staff reports a little bit to make it a little bit easier. Our attorney was concerned that we are not having you adopt, or city council adopt, formal findings. We are taking what you're saying and then we're putting it into an action letter to send to the applicant, but we need you to adopt the findings. And so he was concerned about that. So this is how we came up with it. We'll recommend findings, and then if you have any changes to those findings, you would do it in this meeting, and then we would send the letter. So that's how we're handling it.
Just more work for you guys.
Yeah. And hopefully less for you, but, and so here's the two motions for your consideration. And again, I've got all the code changes written out here if we need to, but I doubt we need to.
Make a motion to close public hearing.
Not open
Gotta
yet.
open it first.
Open public hearing. Nobody's here. So now,
Okay, I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second again.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed.
I wanted some more clarification from Rodney.
He's too far away.
It's only 20 after 8, guys, come on.
I know.
Looks like a great application.
This is one of those things we trust you, Rodney, so.
Madam Chair, I'll move to recommend approval of the Nampa City Code text amendment to change portions of Nampa City Code in Title 10, Planning and Zoning, Chapters 14, 15, and 16 as presented in the staff report, and direct the Planning and Zoning Director and City Attorney to draft an ordinance for reading at a future City Council meeting for the City of Nampa.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. And now we are done.